this is like old times, isn't it? Doing the old sofa thing. I hope you can see us all right. And so, Tim, I've got some questions for you this morning, but during the lockdowns, we kind of got used to not seeing each other. We got used to seeing each other in like a box on a Zoom thing, those of us that could figure out how that thing worked, or Teams, or we're phoning each other up. But we recognise that now we're not in a post-COVID world, for very good reasons. Some people are watching at home, and we're glad you are, and you're very much part of us. That's why we invested time and money, and we've got these experts on the cameras. Well, they're becoming experts on the cameras and all of that. So it's important that we are connecting with people in whatever way we can. But I've got a few questions. Firstly, how important is it from a medical point of view to spend time with other people?
Yeah, really good. Oh, goodness. Good question. And before Adam asked me to speak or to be interviewed about this last week, ridiculously, I've forgotten my glasses, so I'm going to have to paraphrase everything. But I've been reading a book, and something really struck me. So we have a WhatsApp group for all our partners, and in about the first paragraph of this book, which is written by two public health experts, was a review of a scientific paper looking at 148 papers looking at loneliness. And what the conclusion of this was that loneliness was a more important factor at predicting health than pretty much anything else, health and longevity. So the more lonely you are, the shorter you live. The more lonely you are, the fatter you are. The more lonely you are, the more unhappy you are. The more lonely you are, the higher your blood pressure. And I sent a little text around to our WhatsApp group saying, folks, we really need to be asking everyone we speak about loneliness. And before the pandemic, there were people who were already talking about an epidemic of loneliness. And again, I've forgotten my glasses, but this is a book I bought because it was the only book in the shop. Boom, boom. No, and it's called Loneliness. And on the back it says, if I can read it.
Has anyone got any glasses that we can?
Oh, Tris, thanks. Probably make it.
Related. That's good.
Probably make it worse, but that's okay. That's great. Thanks.
That's the body of Christ working together, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well done, thanks.
So, loneliness reminds us that individuals and as a society, we have everything to gain and everything to lose in how well or how poorly we manage our need for human connection. And this is written by a neuroscientist. And I was really pleased to see at the end, he also wrote, he was talking about churches. Large number of people appear more desperate than ever for a sense of community and meaning. And if God can be a part of it, adding that even greater meaning and structure, so much the better. And I thought from a professor of neuroscience, that was a really good, and it's right at the end of the book, so that was really good. So it is really important. Connection, social connection is really, really important. And for mental health and weirdly, for physical health. So whatever we can do to increase our social connection will be really, really good. Yeah.
And I mean, I looked at some stuff online as well, and it was like, I just got, oh my goodness, this is massive. I mean, some of us are thinking Tim's overstated that, but you haven't, have you? It's incredible. And some of us are naturally introverted, and actually, if the truth be told, quite like some aspects of COVID. And I confess, in many ways, I'm naturally introverted. I love being on my own. And it was quite nice at the end of a meeting just to be able to press that off button and suddenly be back at home. And, confession time. When I heard lockdown was over that first time, my first thought was, oh no, I've got to go out again. Did anybody, people can't see you, anybody else want to give a little, anyone else think like that? It's like, oh no. And then I thought, what am I thinking? But we kind of got used to our own little world, didn't we? But, so is it okay for introverts to just be on our own?
That's a really, really good question, a really difficult question. I think there's a few things we need to tease out there. One, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I think if you're alone, sometimes that's fine. You can sit and you can read. I don't think it's good to be alone for long periods of times, because you can get yourself down all sorts of strange rabbit holes, and there's no one to tell you that you're being daft, or that you're amazing, or that you're getting too fat, or whatever it is that, you know, we need our connections to tell us about, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, or that's brilliant, or don't we both really enjoy this? So being alone is different from being lonely. Loneliness, I think, is about being not heard, being unheard, and having no one with which you can be, or with whom you can be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is really difficult. There's an old aphorism that we used to use when we were working with people with addiction, is that people with addiction fear being known completely because they don't think they can be loved if they're known completely. And I think actually that's true for all of us. We all think, goodness, if everyone knew what I was really like, no one would love me. That's the beauty of having God, who obviously knows exactly what we're like and loves us. So I think loneliness comes from having a lack of people that you can be really vulnerable with, and that's not good. And I think if you're introverted, that can sometimes be a barrier to having that, another barrier to being vulnerable. And I think we would be working towards overcoming that, finding people that you can trust to open to. And then there's the other aspect of loneliness, of friendship, which is an antidote to loneliness. It's not necessarily to do with that. That's about having a shared love and a shared passion. And I love Land Rovers, and I was just thinking about what would happen if I joined a Land Rover club, and there'd be some people that like Land Rovers because they can mend them. Well, that's not me. And there'd be some people that like Land Rovers because they can go through muddy puddles. Well, that's not me. And within that group, there'd be some people that like Land Rovers because they like the way they look, which is me, bizarrely. So I could join a Land Rover club, and within that group, I would find people that like Land Rovers for the same people as me. And I think that would become friendship. And we might be an introverted group. There might be very few of us. Presumably, there would be very few of us. I'm not sure. They're not the most beautiful of things, but that would be a friendship group, and that would be an antidote to loneliness there. So even within introverted personality types, there are commonalities and there are common groups, and I would seek to find that group, whatever your interest is. And don't be frightened of what you are or who you are. I like Formula One, and even admitting this in front of you guys, because at heart I'm a hippie, but it took a long time for me to admit to liking Formula One, stupidly, and now I can. I'm a recovered Formula. I like Formula One, and actually so that's opened up friendships with people that I wouldn't have had friendships with just by admitting that that's who I am, and that's okay. You know, it's all right. It's all right to like the shape of Land Rovers. It's all right to like Formula One. That's okay. So, you know, joining groups, finding introverts that are introvertedly interested in what you're interested in is possible. So I would encourage people to do that. It's a risk. It's hard, but the benefits are great.
I'm just seeing a picture now of you in a Formula One race in a Land Rover. I don't know why I can't get out of my head now. But I think that thing of friendships is really important, isn't it? I mean, I know when I went back to playing football with the guys that I hadn't seen for ages, we've been messaging. They messaged me like almost every day during the lockdown. When are we playing football again? When are we playing football again? And we kind of developed a friendship through that, really. And then when we did get back together again, you know, it was really cool. You know, these are friends, and probably some of them watching. So fantastic. But so just going back to some of the effects of spending too much time alone, can you just clarify some of those things? So maybe some of us are spending too much time alone, but how much is too much? And what are some of the symptoms that we can be looking out for and thinking, hold on a sec, that's me?
I think it's difficult because there's a cause and effect here, and if you are depressed and your self-worth is in your boots, then it's going to be hard for you to find friends and for you to tackle loneliness. So getting that treated insofar as you can and getting that worked on may help with loneliness. But the flip side of that is, if you are alone, then your self-worth will be in your boots and you will become depressed. So there's a real interaction there, and it's a chicken and an egg, and it's difficult to tangle out what is that. So I would think a two-prong approach to that would be appropriate. And the more you deal with the underlying issues that are driving your loneliness, then the better you'll feel, and the less they'll become drivers. The effects, well, I mean, you will feel isolated. You will feel alone. I've got a really odd medical condition that doesn't bother me that much, but sometimes I do feel a bit of a freak. And I was sitting in the front of the church there, and the lovely, beautiful, stalwart Colin Meach approached me at the end of the service, and he listened, and what he said was a really profound connection for me at that point. And at that point, the loneliness I was experiencing with my weird medical condition went away. I felt understood, and it was beautiful, and I'm really, really appreciative for Colin for that. But how I was feeling before that was, I'm a bit of a freak. No one understands me. It looks like my head's about to fall off, and it's never going to get better. A whole lot of really negative things were whizzing around my head. And people do say some funny things about medical conditions and stuff, and they assume stuff, and they assume because I'm a doctor and all sorts of stuff. Colin didn't assume, and he really blessed me for that. But I was feeling pretty rubbish before that. So I think if you do feel isolated in whatever it is, you feel isolated, you haven't got anyone to talk to, you haven't got anyone to hug, you haven't got anyone to confide in, you haven't got anyone that really understands what you're feeling, it's a bad place to be, and we're not meant to be in that place. Now, if you're an introvert, you can spend an hour and a half reading a book, you can spend an hour and a half painting your model railway, you can spend an hour and a half painting the landscape, and that's fine, that's okay, you feel okay. You're in the flow and you enjoy that. And that's different from sitting there feeling misunderstood, unhappy, isolated, and very, very misunderstood. And I think actually being misunderstood or not understood is a really hard place to be, one of the hardest places to be. So that's probably what drives the medical side of it, because when you're feeling like that, you get a whole lot of adrenaline and your blood pressure goes up, and if you're me, you eat biscuits, So that sort of stuff happens, but it just takes a Colin Meach to come up and just tap you on the shoulder and say he didn't say very much, but he got how I was feeling, or at least he listened to how I was feeling. And we will miss him. I miss him already. Yeah.
That's fascinating, isn't it? So it's not, coming to a church service, it's not just about this. It's about what happens in 5 hours' time when we finish the service. Whenever we finish the service, and that over coffee, over a biscuit, whatever. We chat, we have fellowship, we encourage, we're appropriate, we hug, we pray. It's that a lot of us missed, isn't it? That's what we miss. That's what we need. That is what church is about. It's not just about this bit on the Sunday morning. It's about what we do together the rest of the week as well. And I know a lot of that continued during COVID, didn't it? We continued and we stepped up the talking to each other and WhatsApping each other and all those contacts and stuff. And we need to keep on doing that. I'm no medic, Tim, as you know. I faint at the sight of blood, so I could not do what you do. But my observation is that the church is supposed to be a body. We are the body of Christ together. And when you have a physical body, you have your head and your feet and your eyes and all those different bits. But even as a non-medic, I recognise that if a part of your body is separated, so if your leg's over there and your body's over here, that's not good, And I think sometimes in church life we think we can get on. The rest of the church is over here, but I'm just somewhere else, and it's not healthy for the body to be like that, is it? So that's just kind of a visual aid that I have. But what are we looked at the negatives. What are some of the advantages for people that have been isolated? And a lot of people have been isolated for the last couple of years. If people are able to take those steps, and we'll talk at the end about how we take those steps, what are some of the advantages of actually starting to get back together and meeting together again?
Well, loads. And I would recommend, there's a book of, there's a bloke who, he's a poet, and he runs a medical surgery, but he prescribes poems. and they're just brilliant. And I use it a lot. And the most common presenting thing for him is loneliness. So people come to him and ask for poems about loneliness. And there are some great poems I'll let you have afterwards if you want them about loneliness. And what he pushes people, I mean, the benefits, you get endorphins, which are like a heroin drug that your body produces, so you feel good. Your heart rate slows down. Laughter is really good for you. Laughter dissipates anxiety. Hugs dissipate anxiety. All these things you can't really do on Zoom, and you can't really do without meeting with people. And again, coming back to this thing, you feel understood. And I think feeling understood is really, really important as humans, and being misunderstood is horrible. So, and that takes, and we'll come on to this a bit later, but that comes back to the antidote to loneliness, which we'll talk about a bit later. It's about listening, I think, really. And that's the key to this, actively listening. So the benefits are great. Your blood pressure goes down. You know, I've learnt at work if 3 visits come in at 12 o'clock and I've got half an hour to do them in, and I haven't, they're going to take a minute and a half, I would go to the cupboard in the where I know the biscuits are kept, and I'd eat a couple of biscuits and I feel okay for a bit, but you know, it wouldn't do me any good. I've learnt recently that I just go and talk to Clive or someone and say, oh, I've got 3 visits, I've only got half an hour, and either he'll say, it's all right, you'll do it, or don't worry if you're late, or he'll say, I'll do one. So, you know, the problems that I have are shared, and I don't eat the biscuit, so I don't feel bad about myself for eating a biscuit, and I don't get a sugar rush and a sugar dump, and my waistline stays relatively okay. So that sort of thing, you know, the benefits of having this all, looking out for each other and building us up are really great. They're good. And also it chips things off your back. You know, if you've got a group of people looking at you and thinking, hang on a minute, you just need a nudge in that direction, right? That's good too. And I think one of the benefits of having friends, I was thinking about our cycling group. We're all different, and some of us like to go really fast, not me. Some of us like to look at the scenery, and me. But when we're all together, we bring out different aspects of ourselves. So if Will's not there, then I don't see a bit of Clive that I do see when Will is there. If James isn't there, then Clive doesn't see a bit of me. So having other people around you opens up and it expands who you are, and it allows you to be vulnerable in ways that you wouldn't be without that. And again, it's about being vulnerable with people that you can trust. Yeah.
Brilliant. And just going back to the sort of Hebrews 10 thing we read at the beginning, let's consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. And actually that is part of our responsibility as church, to spur one another on. And sometimes that means, you know, to encourage, and sometimes get an arm around. Sometimes it means to say, oi, come on, you need to do something about this. And then it says, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. So can we finish by looking at habits? And a lot of us got out of the habit of being together. You know, we couldn't do anything about it. You know, COVID, we were told to stay in. If we recognise ourselves that we're in these habits and we need to break free from them, what can we do? And then the second thing is, how can we help other people if we recognise they're stuck in these habits?
I think there's 2 things. Firstly, there are good habits, and I'm feeling a bit uneasy because I'm not desperately good at this. Small groups at church are really good. They bring together disparate people with, hopefully in love, and a place of safety to be yourself and to be listened to. So I would encourage us to get into small groups as best we can. Communicating, if you've got one, with your significant other, your partner, your wife, your husband, or your children, or someone that you trust, having a meaningful communication is a really good habit to get into. And it just, for me, I've got on my desk at work, and I don't always do this by any means, but it just says listen to understand, not to reply. And I think one of the things as groups of people, the habits we should get into is to listen to people until we can't hear them anymore, until we know what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And sometimes that means letting them stop and then saying, and was there something else you wanted to say? And just giving them more time than you think you possibly could until they finish. And Mags and I, my wife and I, we've fallen out of that habit now. Thank you, Adam, we need to get back into that. We used to talk 10 minutes each. So I would talk for 10 minutes and she wouldn't interrupt at all. And then I'd talk for 10 minutes, or she'd talk for 10 minutes and I wouldn't interrupt at all. Nothing. I'd give her eye contact and positive body positions, but we would talk for 10 minutes and swap about, and it was really good. And it's amazing what comes out after about 8 minutes. Yeah. And it feels bizarre and weird, and I would really encourage that habit amongst those. And if you can't do that with someone that you're close to, put your hand up and say, would someone be a listening partner with me, for me? And if you see people that you think, I'm always amazed when I visit old people's homes. And it's so rarely does it happen, because normally we've got to go in and out in 2 minutes, but sometimes if you sit down and talk to someone, you hear so much from them, and it's better than any tablet I can give them. And at the end of the 10 minutes, if they feel that they've been heard, and it's endlessly surprising. And I think one of the privileges of my job is you do get to listen to people, and we are amazing, really. I mean, we do some really stupid things and some really bad things, and we're complete idiots sometimes. But actually, humans are amazing, and what we do and how we love is interesting and fascinating, and how we suffer and how we cope with suffering. So hearing that and not being frightened of it is a really good antidote to listening, to loneliness. So I think being heard and listening would be the thing that I would most encourage. Because it's then you can spur people on. It's then you can hear what's stopping them from doing it. And it's hard. I've been married 25 years, and we slip out of that habit. And habits of work, you have to make them happen. I'm on my 153rd day in a row of cold showers, and it's still an effort. Every morning I have a cold shower, but the benefits are great, and it's a habit now, so I kind of miss it if I don't. So it takes a while, and it's hard work, but the benefits are there. So I'll spur you on there to hear. Yeah. Not so much. Yeah, cold showers are good. There we go.
Wow, okay, right. Well, I wasn't expecting that. There we go. Brilliant. Was there anything else that you wanted to say to encourage us to encourage each other?
Take a risk. I think one of the things the pandemic has done is it's really, and this is difficult, I don't quite know the answer to this, but almost philosophically, we've got to the point where living long and living safe has become more important than living as a community. And I think that's a really difficult balance for us all to cope with. And actually, T.S. Eliot said years ago, he wrote, there's no life without community, and there's no community that's not lived in praise of God. And I think you can make longevity, you can make good health, you can make being safe an idol. And I think perhaps one of the things that COVID has done is it's made us all really, really worried about our health and really, really worried about dying. And that's okay. I totally get that. I mean, I do it myself. But actually, you can do that so much that you forget what life is for, and that is to be loved and to love and relationships. And there's not much point in living on your own, isolated forever. I don't know. Personally, I don't think so. So maybe sometimes just taking a little bit of a risk and saying, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit outside under a tree with someone with a mask on and talk would be a thing to do, and encourage that. And if you're seeing people that are really fearful and really struggling with going out because of COVID, and there are people, and it's desperately sad for them, then maybe approaching them physically or via Zoom is a thing to do. And there are some really good tips with Zoom, like eye contact with Zoom is different. Maggie went to a comedy night last night, and the first comedian was autistic, and he made a big play about how difficult it was for eye contact, and he called eyes jelly balls, which I loved anyway, but Maggie said. So going jelly ball to jelly ball with people is hard enough in real life, but on Zoom it's really difficult. But actually just looking at the camera on your computer, looking directly at the camera on your computer and trying to forget yourself can increase that. It's not the same. It's not the same as face-to-face. But actually, again, it comes back to being really attentive to what the other person's saying and listening actively. And you can connect over Zoom, even with the limits and the barriers that are put up by IT to that. So if you do know someone, or you think you know someone, and it really doesn't have to be anything more than just a hello, how are you doing? And there's been some heartbreaking work on isolated people literally walking to the place where they were going to die by suicide, and their notes said, if one person says hello to me on the way to the bridge, I won't jump off. And it doesn't. And the work around suicide prevention, which is driven by loneliness and being misunderstood and being fearful, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take an expert. It can just be, hello, how you doing? Have a cup of tea, and then just sit and listen. And you don't have to have the answers. you don't even have to say anything very much, just listen. And I would really encourage us as a group to do that, as a church to do that, to listen to one another. And to take a risk, it's all right. It's a personal choice how much risk you want to take. Yeah.